down the hammer and pick up the pencil. You're about to listen to the Savvy Radio Show. Learn from real-life real estate investors, experience revealed with the Savvy Landlord as your host.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen. Yep, boys, girls, ladies, even kids. There's kids in the room at my guest house because they're so cute. They were running around saying some weird stuff like it's supper time and it's 10 o'clock in the morning, my time. So it's like noon your time. I am fortunate. I just love getting guests on the radio show and how I get those guests. Well, first of all, let's just introduce our guest today. His name is Eddie Bailey. That's right, Bailey, kind of like the Baileys in Las Vegas. Bailey as the cocktail. I don't know, but Bailey Eddie, he is from Monroe, Louisiana, and he wears many hats, not only as a real estate investor, we'll dive into that, and also a general contractor, which is really cool. But how did I get to know Eddie? Actually, I don't even know this guy, which makes the interview even more authentic and genuine. It's not pre-scripted. I sent him some random questions, but honestly, I'm not even going to go into any of those questions because I just think reality is more important than scripted. But here's the deal. How I met this guy is from another gentleman named Scooter Howell. And Scooter Howell has impacted my life. I can't just describe how amazing. And even Eddie, I was like, Eddie's an amazing person. And Eddie said, how do you not like that guy? And I was like, let me tell you something of an affection, quick story. Scooter and I were towed our RV. Have you heard about that story?
Oh, yeah.
We were towed in Arizona. And this lady that towed us was narcissistic. She wanted to be in control. She would not let us leave Sedona, Arizona. That's why we call it Crackdona. That's why we call it a bunch of other names. And she required cash. She would not communicate to us. I had to call the police. It was Nightmare on Elm Street. I have not done this podcast. I don't even know if I'll ever will. But I'm telling you, maybe I will. But here's the deal. Scooter's family, his in-laws, jumped on a plane, flew across the country from Louisiana to Arizona to save Scooter and myself, loaned me like $1,200, rented a car. They thought they had to rent a minivan because we were with 8 other dudes. And it's just, you can't explain. It's the Holy Spirit, it's Jesus that these people, and I mean, that's where Scooter's thread is cut from, these genuine people. And you can't not love Scooter. He sacrificed himself, his family, for myself and the guys that I was with. And I'm forever indebted to him. And one day he's like, you need to meet this. Him and I, Scooter and I, are working on a development down there in Louisiana. I don't know if you know that. We're trying to build storage condos and for like industrial people, for blue collar people, for people that, do windows or HVAC. And I was like, you got to find a really good, legit GC. And it's so important to do that. And you got to have a relationship. And I was like, he's like, yeah, Eddie Bailey. I was like, okay. And I was like, well, go have lunch with him. And I love Scooter because he's like, he goes and does it. Like, I don't have to convince the dude. I don't have to say, this is going to be in your best interest. You got to build a relationship. The next day he calls Eddie Bailey. A month later, he's like, man, you got to interview this guy. He's got an amazing story. So welcome to the Savvy Radio Show. Isn't that just a bizarre? And I don't know you from Adam, which is, I think, gnarly that this is how you introduce people and how to get to know people, is just starting from scratch. So let's start from the beginning. I know you've been in general construction, GC. If you don't know what that is general contractor. Basically what that is, this is the point person that takes all the risk, hires all the subs from electricians, licensed people. Some general contractors in some parts of the world don't need a license. I don't know about Louisiana and Oklahoma. It's the ghetto. We don't need license. You could just say you're a GC tomorrow. You don't even have to carry insurance. It's like a $25 permit to be a general contractor. I know one day that will change. So just a little food for thought there, ladies and gentlemen. If you're in Oklahoma, you might want to go get your GC permit licensed for $25 because you can be grandfathered in. One day you may be required to take a test. But for now, so general contracting. So where are you from? Where were you born? Let's start there.
Yeah, I was born here in Monroe, a little town, born and raised in a little country town called Downsville, right outside Monroe here. And presently live in West Monroe now. We have a river that divides Monroe, and people have a little, they like to specify, I live in West Monroe, not Monroe, but West Monroe. But for people out and about Monroe, it's easy to say it's Monroe. So yeah, that's where we make the magic happen.
So you got into construction first, or did you get into real estate first?
I got into construction. I was taking, kind of together. So I inherited a dinky little house when I was 19 years old. It had a value at the time of $10,000, and I was going to college. I was taking prerequisite courses. I was going to be a chiropractor, so I was taking prerequisite courses to go to chiropractor college in Dallas. And my neighbor down the street, I was out of college for the summer, and my neighbor said, "Hey, these guys at this electrical contracting company, they're hiring. They're hiring everybody right now. You just go up there and they'll hire you on the spot." And this was 1996, and I said, "Oh, okay, yeah." And the house that I had, it had no electricity on. It didn't have electricity on it for like 13 years. It had just been, it was just so kind of, I wanted to take the job just to get some knowledge on how to repair the electrical work. It was just kind of a temporary.
Interesting. Was it just like a fascination, like how things work? Is that how your mind works? Isn't like challenging? You wanted to figure it out?
I just wanted to get moved into this house. I wanted to have
your own home.
Yeah, I couldn't hire an electrician, so I thought to myself, well, I can just learn how to get this house rewired so I can get the power turned on, electricity on, so I can at least get moved in to work on the other things at some point. So that was mainly out of necessity. I just took this job over the summer, and it turned into a career. So
now,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, like, were you entrepreneurial before? How did you survive? I mean, you were on the college trail. How did you make money prior, like in grade school or high school? I mean, were you a hustler? You just kind of followed someone's plan? Give us some perspective on there.
When I was a kid, there was a nationwide newspaper. It was called Grit magazine. Look this up. It was a nationally publicated newspapers called Grit, Grit. And I would send off the money as a kid. Now I would send off the money, and they would send me a weekly a round of these papers, and I'd peddle these things door to door on my bicycle. Now we lived in the country, so it was pedaling for miles every day to sell these newspapers. And I really think that people out there just bought them out of pity,
Well, I mean, it's just got balls. I mean, it reminds me of a story when I was a kid. Chinese stars, I'd order them at the mail order catalog, pay cash, mail cash to this mail order place. They would mail me Chinese stars, and I would sell them. Of course, those are illegal, but that was my start of my entrepreneur. But you're taking a publication of sorts called Grit, and what was the content of this? And you're like riding your bike and selling. That's awesome. The motivation. What was the content of the publication?
I have no idea. It was just
you're just a hustler.
Yeah. It was news. I didn't care, didn't know. I just knew that I could sell these papers for, maybe it was like 50 cents a paper. And then I would also pick up aluminum cans on the way. So I'd carry a bag with me and just pick up these aluminum cans. And that's so cool. I just picked up cans.
So that was the survival, right? I mean, that was just, you wanted things and you needed money, and you just took advantage of of the opportunity and just did it. So fast forward, now we're on the house. You inherited this house. It was worth about $10,000. So it was barely standing and needed electricity in 13 years. That's just crazy. So then what happened from there? So did you fall in love with the aspect? I mean, you became an electrician. What happened of that property? Did you get it rehabbed? How long did it take you? How'd you get the money?
Yeah. I mean, it was almost an immediate, just within a couple of, I never went back to school, actually. I never went back to college. I just, this trade of electrical work, I just took to it. It clicked in my brain, and I just really enjoy doing the work. I hired on in the service department of this large. It was a large company. They had probably 150 employees at the time. Big company, and I was hired in that service department. So I learned how to troubleshoot, and so when you learn how, just I learned a lot of facets of that particular trade, just different scenes every day, and it was a great experience, and I just loved it. So I never went back to college, and I really honed my skills in that trade. And I would get on job sites, and I would see these guys, and I'm like you see these guys in construction. Like I would look at that painter over there, and that painter was like a crackhead, and they're doing a fantastic job at painting. Or I'd see this plumber, and they were not that intelligent, and but they were great at plumbing. And I thought, if that crackhead can do that good in their trade, I can excel. I bet I can do better than them. I'm my head's on straight. I'm focused, and so
Motivated.
I would just I would take on all these projects because I felt confident that I could do it.
So you basically fell into being a GC. Like, so someone would call you, they would see your work and they were busy. They were an investor of sorts. And they would like, hey, can you help me with this job? And then you said, sure. And then you would broker it out. Is that basically how that began?
Yeah, no, it started out with doing side hustles on electrical. Mainly I never did any of that other stuff for anyone else. I strictly focused on my electrical work. So I would do side projects for lots of people. I was doing a lot of side work very quickly. And it was I could do one side job for a few hours one day, and I could make as much, as my whole week's pay working at, for $6 an hour at this electrical business. So, but I continued on there and worked up.
So there's a realization kind of forming in your mind that being on your own, right? How long did it take you to kind of just leave that little nest of a secure paycheck? I mean, again, you were going there to learn, right? I mean, you were learning this trade and understanding. How long did you stay at that job before you officially became your own boss?
So I'll tell you what happened. I had worked my way up to being an estimator at this company. So 150 employees. I just really took off. I mean, I excelled in the company. And actually, I had no intent of ever leaving that job.
The money was good.
Money was good, especially in such a short amount of time. I was socking away 15% of my paycheck into this 401k. And I thought, this is it. At 23 years old, I have figured it out, and I had
and just pause right there. So on the outside, a 23-year-old, they're chasing some skirts. They're playing video games. They're lost. They don't know direction. Because I didn't get legit till I was about 27. Okay. So like when I woke up one day, I'm like, and I read Rich Dad Poor Dad around 25, 26. And then I was like, okay, I need to do something. And so at this time, you're already kind of rocking and rolling. You already kind of an understanding how to make money. You have leadership skills, right? Because you moved from just a little hand all the way up to an estimator, which is the critical point of any business, because it's sales and you're the front lines and you're the face of the company. So they wouldn't just put you there to be random. Like, you earn that spot and then you sustain that spot. So then what happened there? Like, and again, your mind is like, hey, I got enough money. I can stock away 15%, which is unheard of because everyone lives at 110% of their income. Everyone is in debt. So you already have a mindset of future. So you have this great job. You're making more than enough money to sustain yourself. You're saving this money. You're 23. Did you get married? When did you get married in there?
I didn't get married till I was 32. 33, excuse me, 33.
Hey, I was 30. I was 31, man. You're in the cool club.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like it. I like it. Okay. So then where's this defining moment, right? I mean, you're living this dream. All these dudes wish they were making this kind of money. They were in the rat race, paycheck to paycheck, day by day. You have a vision. What snapped the camel's back, man? What was the opportunity where you were like, I'm done with this? Like, what happened?
There was, I got fired out of nowhere.
This got fired. All right,
Fired.
tell me. Out of nowhere. Okay.
So there was my boss at the time, or he was a hot-headed, impulsive type person, and I was on vacation. How you get fired on your day off, right? But
There's like videos about this. There's stories about this. You can't. It's like a comedian says it. How do you get fired on your day off?
day off. Uh, but I went on vacation, and while I was on vacation, there was one of these service guys. Now I kind of controlled the service department in this company. They had a service department. If you called, needed a light replaced, we did it. But I was the guy that you would talk to coordinate that with the service technician. But one of the technicians got caught by the city inspector doing a side job. Mm. So, and I don't know anything about it. Nobody knows anything about it. He was on his little covert op mission. Well, the service technician told the city inspector that I was going to pull a permit for him on behalf of the company that he
threw you under the bus.
Threw me under the bus completely. So I come in rolling in that Monday morning, no questions asked. Like, he tells me what happened. This is what the inspector said. And fired. Get your stuff out of your office. You got to go.
Get out.
Yeah.
So were you defeated? I mean, like, were you angry? Like, what happened?
I'm a 23-year-old. I'm crying. Hit one of the other guys. I had a company.
You got caught for stealing. Like you got in trouble. You got in trouble at the principal's office.
Yeah.
I mean, you're 23. You're still a baby. I mean, you're still trying to. Okay. So you walk in, they just straight gangster fire you in front of people, grab your stuff. And you're like defeated. Like you had this vision of a career, right? I mean, I'm assuming, nobody puts 15% away. They're a company man. And they just lost probably the best employee on the planet, probably.
100% devoted. I was 100%. So
I could tell.
They like, put your stuff in the truck. I'll get such and such this guy to take you home. So this 20-minute drive out to this Calhoun, this little town I lived in. And I'm just trying my best to keep my head to the side over there. So he's not seeing me.
Not to cry.
Because I'm
you're just weeping.
Just devastated. Worst day of my life, I thought at the moment. At the moment, it seemed like the worst day of my life. And,
wow.
So I called.
Okay, hold on. All right. So you get dropped off like you just got out of prison, right? Like, here's your stuff. See you later.
Yeah, it was terrible.
So then, you were defeated, bummed out, depressed, right? So then what? What happened there?
I started applying at these other companies, trying to get a job, and it's a small town, and nobody would hire me. I spent like 2 days, and so I called my buddy that worked up there at the same, and I called him. He's still working at the company. I said, "What do you think about, let's start our own business?" And he said, "Oh, I don't know." So we actually did it. So I made some phone calls and called some of those customers that I handled, some of those accounts that I handled at that company. And one of them being Sonic Drive-In. So you've heard of Sonic?
Yeah, they're based here in Oklahoma City.
Johnny Bench Drive. So Johnny Bench being one of or probably the best catcher in Major League Baseball history.
Right.
But anyway, Sonic Drive-In. So I called one of my contractors that I work for, and I said, I'm going to start my business. Could you think you could let me do some of these projects for you? And they were out of town. They were all over the place. And he said, "Oh yeah, man, we love you. We got one in Texas going in 2 weeks. can you do it? I didn't have a license.
Thank God you were an estimator. Thank God because like most construction people underbid and then they get upside down and then they can't finish the job and they're broke. So,
right.
So you at least you understand the front, and you probably like, man, the margins are probably huge now because they had a whole 150 employees. They had a high overhead for sure.
Sure.
So when you were estimating, you had to calculate all that jazz.
Estimating, and I'll tell anybody this: estimating is a trade in itself. Besides the trade of electrical work or the trade of plumbing or the trade of general contractor, estimating, I think, could be a trade of itself, really. So I had learned all parts of it, and which helped when we did this job, because you just know all parts already.
Sure.
So we packed up and my
you
friend did that job in Texas. Went to a little town called Mineola, Texas, and did a sonic and hired a local electrical
to pull
contractor.
A license to pull a permit. Yeah,
and we, it was a little town, so they were, he said, I got, the owner's like, you're gonna pay one of my guys to be on site all the time. I'm like, no problem. So it just blossomed. It's been like hundreds of sonic drive-ins for the next 10 years. So
you did?
Oh, hundreds.
That's awesome. I didn't know you were some celebrity. I knew it. So you cut your teeth for sure at 23, and now let's move forward. How did you get in? So now you got this rock and roll business. How did you convince the guy to quit the job to work to partner with you on the construction? What'd you say to him?
I really don't. I think about that sometimes, and I, it's we get caught up in this. So we don't realize how many people believe in us.
When you didn't believe.
Like we are and still to this, I'm 46 years old. Sometimes I fear that, like, I struggle with believing in myself at 46 years old, when so many other people do. They believe in us, and it's an amazing. It's a neat.
Yeah. Eddie, I think it's normal. It's called imposter syndrome. I have it. I think everyone goes through that. I mean, I can't believe that I made it this far. I thought I'd be dead by now. Where I came from in the ghetto, it's just, you just got to roll with it. You just got to enjoy the process. I mean, just doing one sonic enough, doing 100 sonics, and they don't cut corners, right? I mean, sonic is full on amazing. And so, I mean, if you pass their barometer test, you obviously have the skill set, especially as an electrician. So, okay. So you got that going, that's going on 20 something years later. Now, when did you get into real estate? You got your first rental property that you live in, that you inherited. And where is that now? How did you fall into that scenario?
About 5 years after starting the electrical business, I convinced my business partner that we needed to try to get a couple houses. So we bought a house in a terrible neighborhood, and it was just
in
the
Monroe.
Worst.
Was that Monroe? In Monroe.
That's okay. Right. And it a terrible neighborhood, and it was cheap. Like a lot of investors, we get focused, especially first time investors. We get focused on the I got to find the cheapest house I can. Where's the cheapest house I can find, get into. And so that's what we did. And then the neighbors sold us the house next door, and we were just painting walls in the evenings and laying floor tile on the weekends and doing all that, living that. And then we get tenants, and so you put all this heart and soul into this property in this terrible location, and they're just eating our lunch, just terrible tenants. There's no vetting process. We're just, hey, you got a deposit and a pulse, you got a home, here, welcome.
Yeah. So how long so this is what, 15 years ago that you kind of got into being as a landlord?
It was 2000, around 2005. No, let's say around 2003. So yeah, it was close to 20 years ago when we bought had those first two homes next to one another.
That's awesome. So then, I mean, are you still buying houses, and where are you at now?
So now we have close to we're up to 74 or 75 properties now.
That's awesome. So during that process, that's how you came across Scooter? How'd you cross paths with the legend?
The legend. We had a mutual friend that had a timeshare in Las Vegas. And
this is so funny.
It's a great story. I love telling it. I love telling this story. So we 8 of us went to this timeshare in Las Vegas. We met at the airport. We all knew the couple that had the timeshare. Everybody knew, but nobody else knew one another. And my wife and I had been married at the time. We'd been married maybe a year and a half. And so this was a little over 10 years ago. And Scooter had his girlfriend at the time with him. So we fly to Vegas. I'm Scooter, I'm Eddie. We fly to Vegas and we crashed there at the timeshare that night. We spend the next day drinking, gambling, everything that, doing everything that Vegas has to. And that night we get into an argument about a bed a bed in this condo, and we F you,
I can't see this. This is insane.
Oh yeah. So we get back to the condo at like midnight. Him and his girlfriend pack up, leave and find somewhere else to stay for the duration of the trip. Never see him again till it's the airport. We don't see him again till it's time to leave Vegas and go back home. Like 5 days later. Like, it was disastrous. We didn't speak to each other for a couple of years. So I don't really know how we kind of touch base with each other again, but we've become really, really close friends since. But it was a terrible first impression.
Well, his side, I didn't know about Las Vegas, and I mean, we're all human. I just, I can't even imagine. But the reality is, he thinks you walked on water sometimes. When we were working on this project, we got this land under contract, and I was like, hey, man, this is critical. We've got to get a feasibility study. We got to get this GC out there. We got to see his vision and what we can do. And can he match what the goal and the agenda is? And your name came up, and he was like completely like he's won the lottery knowing you. I was like, okay, make sure you go interview 3 other GCs, because on my side, because I do the same project here, and I'm just getting smashed in the face by general contractors, just overpriced, not knowing exactly what they're doing, not committed. And I mean, that's just from all the way down from a ghetto rental property up to a several $1 million acquisition. It's just everyone's at a different place at a different time, and not everyone's. The word GC is such a thrown terminology, and there's no level of the barrier of entry, right? I mean, you could just say you're a GC, and I was getting referrals, and I was just hitting the roadblock everywhere, almost to the degree where there were several months where I just quit the job, and I was like, I can't. And I used to be a GC myself, and only just because I ran all my own properties, and people were like, how do you do that? Can you do that for me? I'm like, sure, I'll get the house painted for you. It's $2,000, and I'll just broker it out. It's just like, and beat up the contractor, and all right, man, it's got to be perfect. But when he mentioned you, it gave him a hope, that he can do this. And this is one of his dreams and goals. And so it's just an honor to meet you. And then he's the one that called me like a couple of weeks ago. Hey, man, you need to interview this guy. And I was like, okay, no problem. I love to meet new people. So you mentioned earlier off the radio that, you're kind of changing your focus. So about getting more into real estate as an investor versus general contractor, because as a general contractor, it's a job, right? If you don't work, you don't get paid. There's no residual income unless you set up the business and you have several staff members under you. What's your train of thinking there? I mean, you made it. I mean, first of all, any other electrician on the planet made it when they got Sonic as a client. So you made it there. Then you made it when you got married at 30, because I know you probably struggled till you got there. So then you made it when you got this wife. And then you made it when you got to at least 50 units you can sustain, right? It meets some of your lifestyle. People don't know 50 units sounds like a lot, but man, that's about $4,000 or $5,000 a month, maybe 10. But every month there's an AC repair. Every month there's a dramatic problem. Every month there's a vacancy. So you got to factor in 20% there. So you finally reach 75. And then all of a sudden, Scooter calls you. I'm like, what's your thinking? What's your vision? What's your goal now? I mean, you've succeeded in so many avenues. What's your motivation now? And I know you mentioned real estate, but shed some light in there. Maybe someone's struggling in the same position that you're in.
Yeah. It over time, over the last 10 years as being a general contractor versus just an electrical contractor, trying to get, I focused so long trying to get that business off or the last 10 years trying to get that business off the ground. If you wanted a doghouse built, I'm your guy. Let me build your doghouse. Anything I could do to get that going. But then we stepped off into development, and I started working with other investors, and then we'd build some custom homes. So we kind of did a mix of anything, but working with the investors, I found, and especially owning rental properties, I found was a lot easier. You can speak with a lot of investors, and versus a homeowner that just has no focused on these issues that really shouldn't need focus. Well, I got to run and paint on this corner, and I'm like, did you look at your frame job? Do you see how well
or square it is? I mean, go down the street and see the bricks falling off on that crib, but you're beating me up over overspray or so. I hear you. That's why I don't do customers. And then the investor side, I mean, there should be a level of consistency. I mean, if you build a project well and it succeeds and it's financially successful, let's do the next one. And it could be a lucrative business for everybody, and it should be. There's a need for you. I thought you were going to say earlier about the language. Investors speak a different language. They have a different mindset. They're kind of more on the thrifty side. Some of them, have different levels of pain and finances, but it's way different thinking and a mindset. And you already have that at as many units as you have. You kind of been down the road, to buy in bulk, where to get the flooring. You have these understandings, and it could be subgrade. It doesn't have to be retail grade carpet. It just needs to function. Sure. And, I can see you could make those decisions quickly with the investor to move forward on the project. What projects have you built, or what projects do you enjoy working on development wise?
Sure. I've built multiple trailer parks. I love building trailer parks. There's one investor in particular that I had built 7 trailer parks for. But the first one, this is an example of how to appeal to an investor because of the language. The first one we built, it was probably, I think it was a 20-unit trailer park. And this was this was the park. This was a turnkey product. This was the homes set. He owns the homes. He owns the park, everything, the infrastructure, everything. So I gave him a price, and he said, well, my top maintenance guy, he seems to think that we can do this for around $100,000 cheaper. And I said, okay. He's a maintenance guy.
Here we go.
So, it on both sides. I get it. So I said, well, go to your maintenance guy and ask him how long you think it'll take y'all to do this whole project. He said, well, I already know it's going to take 2 years to put this thing together. And I said, okay, well,
too long,
way too long. I could do it in a year easily. So,
or less.
So you think about this revenue, and I took this from Sonic Drive-In or any restaurant that we ended up doing. For every single day that they're not flipping burgers, they're losing thousands of dollars. Thousands.
That's right.
So, yeah. So that was my appeal to the investor. So you think about if this property is grossing $16,000 a month. You got 20 units based on an $800 a month per unit. For a year, it didn't take long to figure out, man, I'm not saving what I think I'm going to save. Actually, it's going to cost me way more in interest payments, lost rents. So,
holding costs, labor, liability, insurance. Speed is the game in development, no doubt. And when it's all fully completed before building. But how'd you convince this individual? And now you've done 7 of them. So this first one, what'd you say? Hey, I can get this done in less time and save you $100,000 in pain. And he said, and this smart guy said yes.
Yeah. Analytical, but he's a very analytical. Like, we would sit for hours on these spreadsheets, and like, hours in his office plugging in numbers and how they compute out over his spreadsheet. And I'm not that investor. I'm like, look, this is what it's going to cost. This is what it brings in. Looks good to me. Let's go with it. Feels good in my gut. Let's do it. So, but
figure it out as we roll.
yeah. There was no way for him to, so he made me, he said, you're going to do it. Let's see it, So we didn't do it in a year. We did it in 8 months, which was even better. He got his units leased up. And then it was like 7 more after that we built for him until he just ran out to expand.
Ran out of land. So that's awesome. All right. So that's, one of my goals is to do an RV park, put a pad down, put the sewage in, pull up a 60 amp or 30 amp box, and boom, go down the road. That's interesting that you have that type of experience, man. You can expand and be as big as you want as a general contractor developer, or you can be as small as you want. What goals do you have now? I had that question earlier, and I got excited about how you got into this deal, but what's your goals now? You're 40 something years old. You've arrived, right? You're taking on Scooter's job, which is going to be awesome because I'm going to be flying down there. So I can't wait to meet you. What's your personal goals, though? That's great. You're living Scooter's dream. He's entrusting you. You're going to fulfill that. What does Eddie Bailey want?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm a little bit at a crossroads. I have these crossroads hit me every few years, and right now I'm in the middle of that. We finished a major 39 house development we did. We built, it was 39 lots. We built most of those houses and then found an opportunity to sell the remaining lots to another investor. And I was burnt out. I was tired, and my children are 5 and 8. And so but it's a constant struggle. I listen to your podcast. I listen to some of your episodes, and it just, part of me on a day will feel, man, I have so much contentment. I have, I think about the ridiculous amount of little time that I get in the morning with my children and my wife. And then we all disperse. They go to school, we go to work and come home. Then we have this ridiculous amount of little bit of time to get before it's time for bed. So, it's just so I struggle with that. Like, maybe this is kind of where I need to level off. But then I hear your podcast and it gets me on fire. I'm like, man, I got to get out there and hit it again.
I don't know, man.
I'm barking at my wife, like, we got to find some more stuff,
I don't know, man. I'm 40. I just turned 49 in September, but I feel the same way, man. It was the hardest thing just to bow down and just commit to my upbringing of my children. I didn't have a dad. My mom worked 3 jobs, and having the finances and the ability to spend time with them is, I think, well worth more. God told me this one thing. I may have said it before, but it's like, stop building your kingdom, VanCauwenbergh, and build my kingdom. And, if I invest time and energy into my kids and raise them up to be God-fearing people that can reach, like my daughter's out ministering to a foster home today. Where did that come from? It was never my intention, but through this hard labor in the beginning from 23 for 20 years that you sacrifice, I think you just need to try to find real balance. And you are blue collar like me, so it's going to be difficult. Like you feel like you're going insane. You don't have a project, and I think you should just slow and steady, man. Make those level commitments. Like I'm there when they leave in the morning, and then I'm there when I get back. So I got this little window to just kill it, and I lose a lot of money too, man. I lose opportunities. Somebody's like, "Hey, come look at this house at 6:00 tonight," and I can't. I'm like, I can't. I'm just like, "Oh, Saturday we're gonna have a investor meetup." I can't. I lose a lot of clients because like they work full time. They want me to coach them, and I'm like, I can't. I mean, this is my coaching window, 9 to 2, because I leave the office at 2. But I think those sacrifices that I'm making in my mind, and I don't see the return, but seeing that return today, where Kennedy's like, "Hey, I'm gonna go hang out with these folks at this foster home and have lunch with them for Thanksgiving," and I'm like, and that's just her personality. God has blessed her that way, and I think me instilling love and affection and being there, she wants to be there and love and affect other people that need it. And I don't think you'll ever see, but you've arrived. I mean, like, how many more houses do I need? How many more? I mean, I can only ride one bicycle. I can only go on one plane. I can only do so much. And that's why it's real critical in my life now. I'm like, I really analyze all the people I hang out with and like, why am I hanging out with them? Why am I doing the podcast? And just you fulfilled me right there. You're like, "Yeah, I listen to your podcast and get fired up." It's interesting because sometimes I just don't know who listens to it and I don't know what impact that it makes. But if it just fires one person up, it was worth the energy. And I've been holding back this last month. I haven't really dropped stuff because I'm fighting my own demons. I'm fighting my own problems. What should I be doing? And I got kicked in the balls about the general contractor. And, I had to go through 3 of them. And I'm like, man, I guess I'm not made to build. I'm like, this is just not my deal. And then it circles back. And then you meet guys like you and just give me hope. I'm like, dude, like, I can't wait for you to see what you do. And it just gives me hope that there's guys out there that are genuine and you're trying to focus on your family at the same time. And I think that's, there's nothing wrong with everyone making money and everybody's at home and everybody's, we just need to figure it out. And I think you'll figure it out, man. It's just a process. Right. So, it's easy to say and then to do, guys that I work with right now that are super blue collar, man, it takes them years to stop shaking from not getting out there and getting dirty, not getting out there and hanging stuff and working stuff and really learning to outsource and really learning to let go and have a hobby. And, wine and dine their wife and, appreciate them. And it's just a process, just like you came from 0, you had to get slapped in the face and you've done 100 Sonics. I mean, it's no big deal, right? I mean, to me, I don't even know if I could take on a Sonic job. I would, because I'd be greedy. But I mean, would I be efficient? Would I do it right? Probably not. And you learn that. I mean, that's a skill set you'll have for the rest of your life. And you can monetize that forever. I don't know, man. I can't, on this 5-minute podcast, I can't, but I just want to encourage you to say, man, you can do it. I mean, and there's nothing wrong. I mean, I think the biggest thing I think I can hear in your voice, and my little battery pack is about to run out. So if it cuts out pretty soon, but I think the one thing I think a lot of people need to hear, and I hope that people that are listening to this, it's okay to say yes and take on a job, and it's okay to quit, and it's okay to say no. If you get into a job or you over leverage yourself and it's eroding from your family, then just cut it off. No one's not going to like you. No one really cares about us, right? The reality is, you're a man of your word. You're going to do the best you can. But, I learned this a while back. One of my staff members got cancer. And I realized really nothing really matters. They're going to sell me out, right? Like, they got cancer. Like, if they die tomorrow, it's not their fault. You're going to take care of your family. And so I think it's important that you take care of your health and take care of yourself and then take care of your family and whatever comes from it. If you build a bunch of storage condos or, maybe you could start using your mind. Maybe you could write books. Maybe you could do, I think we're not dreaming big enough. Someone slapped me the other day, one of really good friends of mine. He's like, "Steven, you're always thinking $2,000 a month." I was like, I am. I want to make an extra $2,000 a month times 10. Like, I want 10 businesses paying me. He's like, "Man, that's small." And I'm like, and really affected me. And he's such a great friend. why aren't you thinking like 50,000 a month on a new business project? And I'm like, I can build these condos nationwide that bring in 50,000. But see, my insecurity, I only go, and I see this in my son, I only go for what I can win. And I need to start setting down, dream bigger, and then pursue that dream. And at the end of the day, if I'd accomplished or not, it doesn't matter. It's the process. Your family's going to love you regardless if we build 1,000 condos or we build one or none. I mean, you've provided a great lifestyle for them and you're blessed through that process. And Scooter is an amazing individual because you're one of many people that this man has impacted, like Lamont Woods and Jared Benjamin. And these men that I know personally are, I want to be like Scooter. I want people to be like, man, my life has changed because he invested in me, and that's what I hope and pray that the podcast will do for other people. So what are you going to do? How are you going to contribute to other people? I know I talked too long there, but let's look at the next 12 months, and we got about 5 more minutes here before I shut down. What advice would you give somebody like right now, like, outside looking in, hey, this guy's 40-something years old. He's probably a millionaire by now. He can probably pick any construction job he wants to take. He probably has to turn down a lot of work. What advice would you give that young guy or gal that wants that type of success?
I would encourage anybody to buy real estate. Just
come on.
Buy as much real estate as they can today, as much as they can afford, or as much as they can cash flow, because what seemed like at 20 in my 20s, what seemed like a lot of money for a piece of real estate in 2022 is just ridiculously cheap now. I mean, and so all that property, I started buying these tracts of land years ago. I'd set these and I bought tracts of land. I just wanted the idea of having some land, and later utilized that to put these mobile homes on. And that's kind of what started restarted my rental business. So, but all that land now it is worth so much money. And even just 10 years. So you go 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, just 2 years ago in this market. I mean, look at the properties that we have purchased, and look how crazy. Much wrong. So, don't be scared of the battle. Don't be scared of the challenge. Don't be scared of the what ifs. Get your hands on some real estate, because it's going to grow. Even if it grows with just inflation, it's a solid investment. And if you needed to, in 10 years, part of what we do in investing is exit strategies. How can I, what's a good exit strategy to come out on top of this and do well for myself? And so when you're buying a piece of property, have the exit strategy in mind. So, but whatever you do, get your hands on. So.
No, that's awesome. I mean, I think we need a reminder of that. I mean, some of my properties have tripled in value. Like a house I paid 15 for, I put 20 in it. I got it for sale right now for 100. I mean, I can't even just fathom, Yeah. I wish I would have bought, and I know that we're about to hit this. I think it's going to crash again. I mean, it's everywhere, but wherever you're at, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, definitely try to buy a property. When I got into this game, I did owner financed, and I actually sell property on owner financed. I mean, get with another investor, save up a couple thousand and just hit the pavement. I mean, it will pay. It's paid off. I mean, I remember the time when I didn't have to think about money anymore. Like it was always just a negative gnawing debt. How am I going to make this payment? And then now I just look at money as just this infinite abundance tool. It's like, just like the lunch I had yesterday, I was like, yeah, I just make one phone call and then get a $500,000 private loan. I mean, again, it took years to get to that point. One of my friends reminded me, it's relationships and time. Yeah. But if you don't start, you can't get there. And so even if you have no money right now, you can definitely just take a look at what's out there. And I started getting back into the market right now. Actually, just before I got on the call, I looked at 2 assets online, and I went and looked at a property yesterday. I went back to my old system of tracking these properties, putting them in my Trello, and revisiting them every 30 days. Where are they? Would they sell for? Getting a pulse for the market, because as soon as it does change, which it will, I'll be ready. I'll know exactly what's carrying. I don't understand what's happening today. 30% more. I mean, these stupid houses are trading for, I don't know what, I mean, I know Louisiana is kind of Oklahoma-ish. We got $20,000, $15,000, $30,000 houses sometimes. And it's just crazy what people are so desperate they want to get in. It's just the same thing with Airbnb. People are so desperate to get Airbnb, and now it's oversaturated. And again, it's time to pivot. You got to move. And that's what's a great thing about skill, about being a general contractor. And some advice I would give some young person out there, especially knowing Eddie and where he came from, you should learn to be a general contractor. I remember when I first started, of course, I'm blue collar. I just started out mastering construction. Not that I'm not even a craftsman, but I know how to deal with blue collar people. I know the struggles that they deal with. I know their language. And I just utilize that for my benefit. And as soon as I master construction, or I can remodel anything, and then I just moved on to the second thing, which was money. And a lot of people get too focused on this other side. I got to find deals. Yeah, money's the least of the concern. But if you find a deal and you don't know how to rehab it, or you don't know how to estimate, you're going to get buried. And I've just seen that just recently. They overpaid and they over remodeled, and now they're upside down 30, 40, and the market's going to change. You're going to lose $40,000 in equity, all because they should have just started out with construction. Just understand it takes retail $300 to hang a door. Call Home Depot up, find out what does it cost. Now, I can pay somebody I pay $25 an hour now, but back then I can find a guy at $10 an hour to hang a door, and it's going to cost me $60. But and I can leverage that, and I can resell that service for $150. And that investor thinks I'm Jesus and I'm making money. But, you got to understand how the business works so you can understand the rules to the game. When you know the game, you will be successful. But the problem, you're going to get burned if you don't know the game. And I think that's a skill set that you have, man, that's forever will pay off. And so I think you need to think of it like that. When you're transitioning into whatever career God is calling you to do, how do I leverage this skill? How do I, how could I run this business? Or how could I, what I'm thinking now is like, I don't want to own, and I don't want to start another business. I mean, I just want to partner with people and use my skill set or my resources, may it be money, and use other people's time and energy. Like a foreman. A foreman called me today. Hey, I want to start GC business. No problem. You run it. I can get the business, because I could just send out one email, do one podcast. I hope that someone calls you today. Well, hopefully you don't get all these dumb calls, but not only they're going to do Scooter's project, but there could be another one, you just, all because of being on a podcast. How cool is that? Yeah. So how could people, so Eddie, is there a book that has impacted you at all?
Yeah. I will tell you this. It's not a real estate book, but Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins.
Yeah, he has a new book coming out December 6th.
Yeah,
buddy. All right. Yeah, I mean I'm about to read that again or listen to it. That crushed me. I was weeping a couple of times.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's a great book, and it couldn't have came at a better time in my life. A couple years back, I was struggling, having some real struggles, and business and a personal life, and his concept is, and we all know it, but comfort cripples, and when we go after we have to be diligent about going toward uncomfortable moments, physically, mentally, and when we do that, when we're proactive to go after uncomfortable situations in our life, take the difficult phone call, that
or make that call,
or get out there at 5 a.m. and go run a few miles, in 30-degree weather. I hate running, hate it. I run 3 or 4 times a week, because I hate it.
That's awesome.
And so Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. It was a life changer. It was a life-changing book.
Well said, man. And there's another book that I'm on right now called The Comfort Crisis. And it's similar, putting yourself into these positions, and it's about hunting and stuff. But I'm halfway through that book, but it's just a great reminder. And I can't wait for the Coggins book to come out. Just in your face, like you're lazy, like go outside and run. And I'm actually pushing myself right now. I've been up at 5 o'clock every day this week, and I've been on vacation too long, man. And I just, you got to get uncomfortable to be successful, period. If everyone else would do it, then, it doesn't make sense. All right, Eddie, is there a way that people can get a hold of you? Are you vulnerable enough to throw out an email or a phone number or something so someone can get a hold of you, or
Sure, I would
to connect with you in some form or fashion?
Yeah, I love helping investors, love helping young investors that don't know anything about anything. I try to offer some advice. But 318-372-4235 or 143properties at gmail.com.
Yeah, I saw that. We know 143 means in text and in pagers back in the 80s.
Yeah, I love you.
Yeah, yes, you're my age.
Yeah.
143 in paging. If you got a pager, and I had a pager back then, and you got a pager, and you got a page from your girlfriend, and she said 143, that means she loves you.
That's
awesome. Yeah, man, I'm truly honored to meet you, and we've only scratched the surface of what you can contribute and what you've done, and I can't wait to follow up with you. I always try to go back a year or two and try to have old guests on and just, where are you at now? How did you overcome this? But I'm definitely looking as soon as it gets warmer, I'm definitely coming down there to see the project and with Scooter and you. And so I'm just excited, man.
All right, man. Me too, man. Looking forward to it.
Yep. I appreciate your time, and we will meet again.
Thanks for listening to the Savvy Radio Show. Glide online and listen to our other motivating episodes at savvyradioshow.com. Connect on Twitter at LandlordBook and always be buying assets.